Interest rates are rising, and most first-time buyers think this is really bad news. The reality is, this could actually be the biggest opportunity you have to enable you to buy your first home for a very, very long time. Now, I speak to first-time buyers every single day who are worried about interest rates, but what a lot of people don't realize is how the market actually shifts when interest rates are rising. People think the higher interest rates are, the more it costs, and the worse time it actually is to buy. But in actual fact, you have less competition, more negotiating power, and sellers under pressure to sell. Now, I'm going to keep it really, really simple. Throughout the video, I'm going to look at 5 different ways you can benefit from interest rates rising. And spoiler alert, we have an awful lot of content in a very short space of time. So stick around, because everything you see in this video is going to enable you to get the most out of buying your home in the next year. And I think it goes without saying, this video relates to at any point where interest rates spike or are higher than normal. So if you're watching this years down the line from when it was released, don't worry, the same still applies. Now, we're going to be building out this document here, and the first section I'm going to look at is less competition equals better deals. Now, what do I mean by this? Fewer buyers is less competition, and less competition means that you get a better deal on the property. Because now you're actually looking at buying a property, you don't have 10, 15, 20 other people lining up for viewings, and potentially 10, 15, 20 other people offering on that property. Therefore, if you go in £5,000 under asking, £10,000 under asking, 1% under asking price, there's a lot higher chance that you are the best offer there, because instead of competing with 15 people, you might actually be the only one. Now, this was a really, really big issue at the start of the year in 2026. And again, any time where interest rates rise, or at least where interest rates were in a good position previously, you're going to see this, a lot of competition. I've had it, my clients have had it, where you go into a property, you really, really love it. You think, right, I'm going to go straight in for asking, try to secure it. Oh wait, there's a cash buyer asking. If I want to have any competition whatsoever and compete with this person, I need to go above asking price. When rates are high, now what does this create? This creates properties sitting on the market for longer. So for those of you that want to plan and plan in a smart way, what you need to be doing is assessing what properties are available on the market and assessing how long they've been on for. Now, this is really, really easy on things like Rightmove nowadays, because you can see when the property was listed. Now, they can be a little bit cheeky and take listings down and put them back on later, but a lot of agents aren't actually clever enough to do this, or at least if they are clever enough to do it, they're too lazy to do it, because it's a lot of effort removing something and taking it off. But in most scenarios, you can actually see where properties have been sat on the market for 4, 8, 12 weeks. And all of a sudden you're thinking, right, well, the seller's clearly motivated. They want to sell the house. They've kept it listed for all that time. Your job is to then go and see, right, well, why is the seller motivated? Can I go in there and give them what they need, potentially under asking price, therefore getting you a better deal, therefore benefiting you, the first time buyer? Now, I have to add it in there just so you can see it at the end of the video. You're no longer competing 10 other buyers. It's really, really important to know this, because just a few short months ago, and again, if you're watching this in the future, when rates are low, you have a lot of competition. When you have a lot of competition, the price gets driven up, and it's just not a very fun scenario for pretty much everyone involved, especially a first-time buyer who just wants to secure their home. Now, that does nicely lead me on to strong negotiation power. So this is the second most important thing. You need to appreciate and understand your strong negotiating position. This is going to be incredibly important to understand where you can go in, how you get out, and basically understand the situation as a whole to get you, the buyer, the best price possible. Because again, we rep the buyers. Now, you are doing everything in your power to position yourself to offer below asking price. Now, there are numerous ways you can get this done, and there are numerous ways you can smartly position yourself to make sure that you're not only offering under asking price, but you are offering something that's going to make the seller happy. Because again, we can take advantage of situations and timings in the market, but at the end of the day, you are dealing with someone selling their family home or selling an investment property where there's probably a little bit of ego there. So some people come to me and say, well, why don't I just offer 1,000 off asking? Why don't I start really, really low and meet somewhere in the middle because they've watched a video on how to negotiate 10 years ago or something like this? Well, the thing is, you're not dealing with a company. You are dealing with an estate agent who forwards this on to an actual person. So it's really, really important whenever you're positioning yourself, understand the market, or employ someone that understands the market, and when looking at it, make sure that whatever offer you put forward is an educated offer. You can do online valuations where you don't have to have someone go out, or you can contact me to do an online valuation for you. But again, when you're looking at this, you need to ensure that whatever you put forward is an informed offer that doesn't offend the seller. You want to encourage negotiations, not push them away. Now, next up, and this is something that really does go under the radar for a lot of clients, is asking for extras. Now, what do I mean? I have actually put it there. So fixtures and repairs. Now, people think that, it kind of comes into 2 stages, to be honest. when you go and put an offer in on a property, that's the be all and end all, and you're just talking about the price and only the price. Now, something important I've noted there is fixtures. Now, fixtures are things that are actually fixed into the property. It's fixed in. So this is a number of different things, but essentially you are asking retained, but also can be cheeky and request fitting retained as well. So I know of many transactions where someone's looked around and they thought, I really like shed in the garden. I really like that outhouse, which isn't something that's like plumbed in or anything like this. It's basically just a bigger shed. And they've said, I would really like to keep that as part of the purchase price. And oftentimes where sellers are like, well, actually, it would have been a bit of a hassle for me to get rid of it. It would have been a bit of a hassle to move it anyway. Fine, we'll keep it in as part of the transactions. That in itself is benefiting you, because I have also had the flip side where people don't think about negotiating this in, and the sellers take away something that actually was part of the reason why you wanted to buy the property in the first place. So just make sure that that is negotiated in, because it's really important. But the other thing I mentioned on the document there is repairs. Now, you are not a surveyor. Well, at least most of you are not surveyors. If you're buying a property as a first-time buyer and you are a surveyor, you're in a great position. But most of you are not surveyors. You're going to go out and look at a property and you're going to see it at face value. Even myself, I look at so many properties online because of my clients, but I'm still not a surveyor. I don't know what I'm looking for, and I have a better understanding, but the point still stands as a surveyor. So you're going to look at a property and you're going to see it at face value. Now, when you go through the mortgage process, there's two separate stages where you're going to potentially find issues with the property. The first stage, which most people don't find the problems at this point, is the lender's valuation. Now, some lenders will do an in-depth report and they won't tell you, but they will go and have a look to make sure it's suitable. Other lenders will potentially do an online valuation. And again, it's not exclusive as well. Some lenders, most lenders do both. Sometimes they send someone out, sometimes they do an online one. So again, there's a little bit of a risk that the lender's not going to find any issues with the property. They're mainly just going to say, right, we're happy it could sell for what you're buying it for based on what we can find. Now, the second stage where you can really take advantage of it is a private survey, a RICS level 2 or level 3 survey, where you pay a professional surveyor to go out to the property and assess it. And they will be there for a very long time looking at every little corner of the property to make sure it is what it's advertised for, and make sure that you're not going to have any ridiculous problems come up in 2, 5, 10 years time that you wish you'd have known when you were buying it before you bought the property. And until you exchange contracts, which is really late in the process, you can pull out of the deal. So it's a conversation we have with our clients a lot of the time. Get a private survey done. And again, I can't recommend which one you go for, but have a conversation with an advisor and you can see which one is actually more appropriate. But again, no advisor can recommend go for a level 2, and it missed something that would have been on a level 3 survey, which is the more detailed one, then all of a sudden you're liable. So don't say, if someone says I recommend a level 2 survey, they can't do that. But what we can do is say, right, maybe a level 2 is more appropriate, maybe a level 3 is more appropriate. But if you want to cover everything, go for a level 3 survey. It's inexpensive, anywhere from £500 to £700 depending on your location, and also potentially depending on the property as well. You can use the information on the report to negotiate the purchase price. If they turn around and say there's £5,000 worth of repairs needed on the roof, guess what? I don't want to pay £5,000 worth of repairs on the roof. I'm going back to the estate agent and saying this was not disclosed. I need a discount, or it needs to be rectified before we exchange contracts, or I'm out of here. Because it is a buyer's market. There are so many opportunities out there. You do not want to be committing yourself to a property where there are ridiculous issues hidden behind closed doors and things that you wouldn't be able to see at face value. There's so many different opportunities in the market. Just move on or get it discounted. But again, these opportunities don't present themselves in markets where you've got loads of competition, because the estate agent is just going to relist it and they'll have a new buyer within a couple of weeks. That's not the situation right now. People need to sell and people need to move. Now, I have to say, and this is the final point here, is most buyers are still offering at asking price, no questions asked, and that's a mistake. Like I said earlier on in the strong negotiation power section, you just need to understand the situation, you understand the seller's situation, what they need or what they're asking or what they're saying they need, also what is actually viable. You need to understand the situation, you need to understand your own situation and make sure that whatever you're doing is right for you and your future. Now, that just basically comes down to do your research. Make sure you're not putting yourself in a worse position by paying over the odds, which in some situation is actually paying asking price. Just because it's asking price doesn't mean it's actually what it's worth. Do your research or ask someone to do the research for you. Now, something we've briefly covered already, and this is the third point here, is more price reductions. Now, price reductions are more and more common. If you're scrolling through Rightmove, doing your research and looking at various different properties that are available on the market, you are discovering more properties actually had the price reduction. This means one thing: the estate agent has reached out to the seller, or the seller has reached out to the estate agent saying we need to reduce this price. Now, that's either the estate agent saying the seller's expectation correctly, or the seller being a little bit more desperate to get the property gone by reducing the price to hopefully get more foot for property. Now, both scenarios are great for the buyer, for you guys watching this video, because it basically enables you to go out to properties understanding that either the estate agent thinks it was up for too much or the seller needs to go. Either one of these are great because the estate agent's going to talk, or the estate agent's going to offer you some information as to why the price was reduced. Either one of these can be used to your own advantage, potentially go even potentially below that asking price. But again, point being, stronger negotiation power from point two. Make sure you do your research into the property. It does not change. Just because a price has been reduced doesn't now mean it's suddenly a good deal. Potentially it was already listed for too much anyway, and making the price reduction just makes it seem like an attractive option, whereas it might still be listed for too much. Make sure you do your research. Now, the top point here is sellers are adjusting expectation. Now, sellers are waiting longer, they're having less people through the door, they're having less viewings, they're having less offers. Their expectations are being adjusted every single day, every single weekend, where you would expect maybe 5, 6, 7 viewings. Now it's all of a sudden one, if they're lucky. Their expectations are going down, down, down as the weeks pass. Now, for those people that don't need to sell and don't have another property that they were looking to go for, then all of a sudden those properties are going to potentially start disappearing from the market. But for those people that do need to sell and do want to sell and are very motivated sellers, those properties are going to remain. And those properties that remain later into this year, or at least if you're watching this in the future, months after interest rates have risen, you know those sellers need to sell. So you as the buyer can take advantage of that and have conversations that are both respectful for the seller, but also beneficial for you, the buyer, because again, you're trying to enter the market. So you need to make sure that it's right for you, which again, always goes back to that. Make sure you do your research into the property and trust a professional that can actually support you, the buyer, not the seller. The estate agent supports the seller. Now, this is the point I had to bring up because I'm seeing it all the time as well, where listings are dropping after 2 to 4 weeks. Now, this is something that's really, really important. And again, I briefly mentioned it in that top point. If a property's price is reduced very, very quickly after it's been listed first time, and again, you can see this information when you scroll down through Rightmove, Zoopla, and all these different pages. You can see when it was listed, when the price reduction was there. If the price was reduced that quickly, you have to ask the question, was it listed at the right price in the first place? Not to look at it as, wow, look, I can get a £10,000 discount right here. Because again, you have to remember, estate agents' job is to get the best price for the seller. Now, if their job is to get the best price for the seller, they can position a property higher to start with and reduce it within 2 to 4 weeks as a tactic, if you will, to ensure that when you, the buyer, are looking at the property, you think that you're getting yourself a deal. It is a tactic. And again, if you do your own research, a lot of the time it's going to indicate that actually, A, it was listed too high in the first place, and B, it's still listed too high after the price reduction. I've seen properties where there's been 2, 3, 4, 5 reductions and it's still been listed too high, and my client ends up getting a deal on it. So make sure you do your research, make sure you talk to a professional. If you need to talk to me, a mortgage advisor in the UK who's gone through this scenario many times, book in the call using the link in the description and information together, and make sure the best price possible. Now, price reductions is where you can find deals. Now, I'm not saying that where deals are just sat there with your normal guide price that there aren't deals to be made, but where there are price reductions, you really do know that either the estate agent or the seller is basically going at the other person and saying, right, we need price because we need the property gone, or the estate agent's going to the seller and saying, right, well, it's listed for too much, we need to make a reduction. Either way, there's a conversation to be had there, and that conversation is essentially instantly putting you into negotiating, which is fantastic. Point 3 is probably the most important whole video, but make sure you always refer back to point 2, which is to do your research. Now, the fourth way you can benefit from higher interest rates is to remortgage later. Now, this really does refer to the other sections because obviously at this point you've managed to get your property at a really good price, and you can then potentially remortgage onto a better rate later down the line. Now, this really does hone in the point here, which is purchase price over the interest rate. Now, this is really important, but we have to explore why. Now, purchasing your property for a good price is way more important than your first interest rate. The reason why is because you can actually go for a short-term fixed deal if you have flexibility there and it fits your lifestyle, it fits your medium and short-term plans, and even your long-term plans in a large extent. Then going for a shorter-term fix potentially gives you an opportunity, especially if you are buying when interest rates have spiked massively, and again with future, but if they have spiked up, buying at a reduced purchase price is way more powerful and way more sort of foresight into the future, because you are helping future you, because you bought in at a low price. When rates do hopefully later then reduce, your purchase price then looks like it's a really great deal, because all of a sudden when the market goes up and interest rates go down, your difference between the purchase price and the value of your property in 2 or 5 years is your equity. So the potential upside from the increased equity versus the potential downside of a short-term higher interest rate is massive. Now, the younger you are, the better potential this is, because hopefully you're buying that property to be in for a very long time. And I suppose the other thing relate to that as well is the longer you look to buy a property and retain that before, the higher potential upside there is in terms of actual inflation, house price inflation, and how that compares to normal inflation, because house inflation and normal inflation are separate metrics and they're measured separately. So you want to make sure that when you actually sell your property, you've managed to build up equity over time, which the longer you're in the property, the higher chance there is of that. So remortgaging later is a really great tool. It's really important to understand that interest rates are always going to change. Your purchase price is never going to change. So focusing on getting your best purchase price is essential to getting a good deal. And the deal is both of them combined. Now, I briefly mentioned it there, rate review. So if you go for an interest rate and you fix it in for 2 years, you can then review that interest rate in just 2 years' time. So if the market was to improve over the short term, you can actually benefit from that in the short term. 2 years is short term. I know a lot can happen in 2 years, but only committing to a short-term fixed deal, but managing to secure a really great purchase price is so powerful for the long term. And for you first-time buyers, getting onto the ladder is actually the hardest part. But also, I think it's really important to mention here, when we combine the two, that you really have to focus on buying a property that you can see yourself in for at least the medium term, maybe 5 to 10 years. And ideally, if you can afford it, buy your forever home now. I know it's a bit crazy and no one knows where they're going to be forever, but find your location, understand the size you need, understand your budget, and you can go off and make, hopefully, your dream purchase come to life. Now, this is something that people often overlook, which is term. Now, we can kind of pitch in there and say overpayments is also something that's really important, but term reviews is something I really like. So every time you remortgage, so every time your fixed rate deal comes to an end, you can actually review your mortgage term. Now, this is a powerful tool I encourage pretty much every single one of my clients to take on. And reviewing your term every single time you remortgage is a very good way of not mortgage, because if you come to me and it's only affordable to get you a mortgage on a 40-year mortgage term because interest rates are super high, you go for a 2-year fixed deal, it's manageable, you get through it, and then when you review that rate in 2 years' time and hopefully rates are lower, you can then change from what will then be a 38-year mortgage term down to a 30-year, a 25-year, because with pay rises and potential house price inflation and also hopefully lower interest rates, you can then go on to afford the same monthly mortgage payments, if not higher, which will then inevitably reduce your mortgage term. I did it myself. I started off with a 40-year term, I fixed for 2 years, the rate came down by nearly 1%, and then I reduced it down to a 30-year mortgage term. So essentially I've taken 8 years off, and my monthly mortgage payments is about £6 or £7 more expensive than it was originally. So really manageable, because we've taken advantage of a later approach. Now, I know it's small, and I know it's something that you're probably going to forget, but date your rate, but marry your home. Now, that is a really important statement, but it's something that's very looked over. Now, you're only going to date your rate. It's only going to be for 2, maybe 5 years, but you're marrying your home. You're hopefully going to be moving into a property or buying a property that you're going to be in for 10, 20, 25, 30, 35 years, maybe the rest of your life. Now, price you buy at home for is way more important than your interest rate for the next 2 years. Way more important. People focus so much on timing the market, and again, people get it wrong. They waste time, they waste money, and it creates stress. And I want you to buy a house with no stress, or at least as little stress as humanly possible. Date your rate, but marry your home. And where that comes from is getting it for a good price that's affordable to you in the moment you buy it. That's all that matters. Now, the final big advantage on how you can benefit from higher interest rates is more time equals better decisions. You not having 10, 15, 20 other competitors looking to buy the same home that you're looking to buy buys you. What time buys you is better decisions, and what better decisions buys you potentially a massive uplift in potential price cuts, potential planning, and overall just making a better decision for your long-term self, which is the most important part about all of this. Whatever you do is focused on long-term for yourself, for your family, for whoever you're buying the property with. It needs to be right for you. And this market encourages that, and more time enables that. Now, it kind of comes without saying, but a slower market means less panic for buyers. It's important to say that because sellers are probably listening to that statement and they're thinking, wait, this is the worst time ever. But as a buyer, it's a slower market. Less competition means slower. Now, you having a more of a time opportunity to make choices. And again, you're still going to get estate agents that are bullies, but again, you can manage that in certain ways, or at least employ someone to manage that for you. But when the market is slower, there's less panic. When there's less panic, you make better decisions. With better decisions, you will save time, and more importantly, be less stressed, which is super, super important. And that is going to give you more time for the following. It's going to enable you to have more time to go to viewings. It's going to enable you to have more time to plan your mortgage, which is really, really important. And it's going to make more time for smarter decisions. So we look back at that remortgage later. We look back at the less competition equals better deals. We look back at the stronger negotiating power that you're going to be able to employ, and then also more price reductions there on the market. So the more time you have to look at Rightmove, intentionally look at Rightmove, not just scrolling through aimlessly, actually looking at individual properties, calling the estate agents, dropping emails left, right, and centre, or at least employing someone to do those things for you, enables you to find better deals for your potential home. Now, the more time you have to do that means the more time you have to actually go out and look at some of these properties. You might go out to some of these properties where there's price reductions and think, this is awful, I don't want to live here. Perfectly valid. Move on and go to the next one. It's a buyer's market. There are opportunities there for you. This, of course, gives you an opportunity to plan as well. What does this mean? You can have a conversation with a mortgage advisor like myself, meeting link in the description below, and you can actually discuss what you're looking to do, get your agreement in principle, have an honest and open conversation around what your budget is and where that leaves you in terms of mortgage amount. And when you combine the mortgage amount that you're comfortable with the mortgage term you're comfortable with the rates that you're comfortable with, across the fixed period you're comfortable with, you can then go off and understand what purchase price you're able to go up to, which means it's more intentional. When you're looking at Rightmove, you're looking at Zoopla, you're looking at all these different opportunities, you know that the opportunities you're assessing in more detail are viable, which again falls under viewings, falls under smart decisions, falls under mortgage planning. It falls under the whole bracket there, which inevitably is going to get you a better outcome as a first-time buyer, which is the whole point of the video, how to benefit from higher interest rates. Now, it's important to note I've put smart decisions on the document there. Smart decisions just means you've planned for you and your family and the right decisions for the medium and short term. And I appreciate long term is something that's hard to assess, but at least understanding that the property you're moving into, if it's a residential property, that it is a property that you can see yourself in for the long term, at least 5 to 10 years. You are then looking after the short term, the medium term, and mostly the long term. For most people, comes down to location and size. So making sure the size of the property is good for the medium term. If it's a 1-bedroom, guess what? If you're planning on having a family, it's probably not going to be good for the long term. Maybe look at 2, maybe 3-bedroom houses if it's within your budget. And then location. Is it somewhere where you can see yourself for the long term? Are you happy in that location? Do you know the location? Are you taking a risk with the location? If you are taking a risk, then potentially not looking after the long term there. But again, understanding the size and the location that you desire for the medium to long term is really, really important for smart decision. And again, this is something that only you, the buyer, can make the decision for, because it's where you're going to live. It's not where I'm going to live. So I have to say, we've had a look at how to benefit from interest rates. It's important to highlight buying now isn't right for everyone. What's right for you is if it's within budget and it's affordable, and so if it's not and higher interest rates don't benefit you, even if it is for the short term, you just can't afford to make that move. Don't force yourself. You can sit, you can wait until the time is right, because it's only right to buy a property if you can afford to buy the property. You're the ones that have to pay the mortgage, so it's important you assess it in the right way at the right time. But have the conversation, see what mortgage terms are available, see what you can potentially afford on the market, and make an informed decision rather than guessing. Now, finally, you're thinking, right, what's next? Next, get agreed in principle. Use the link at the top of the description to book in a call with myself. We can have a look at your personalized scenario and how we can have a conversation there which benefits you not only now but tomorrow and from this day forward. And we can really plan the short term, medium term, and long term, enabling you to go off and look at the right property, right price. Getting agreed in principle is the single most important thing, not only for you, the buyer, because you understand what you can afford and what the monthly mortgage payments will look like, but also it makes you look serious. If you would approach a estate agent without an agreement in principle, you don't look very serious. But if you go in there and you say, right, I've got an agreement in principle, I've already had a discussion with the mortgage advisor, everything is in place, ready to go, then all of a sudden you're very ready. And estate agents like ready, especially in a time like this, which further enables you to potentially save money when it comes to negotiations because you are ready to buy. You're not just scouting the market. It's important to note, I help people like you every single day. Book in the call. It's going to be stress-free, 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long you need to go through any and all of your questions, get all the planning done, and you are going to have a whole lot of weight lifted off your shoulders. Now, in my next video, I'm going to tell you step by step what first-time buyers should be doing in this market right now, and in any market where interest rates are higher. I'm going to tell you step by step what you should be doing. So click the video on your screen as and when it's available, look at the video, check it out, and those are going to really help you with your planning, and it's going to put you in a fantastic position when you buy your first home. Good luck, and I hope to speak to you very soon.